please join me and make welcome as we invite to the virtual stage for our opening remarks Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, who is also a member of the editorial board of EduTimes Africa, a veteran educator. We've had her introduction. She's of course someone that I would have loved to be in the physical room with, because we would have run to give ourselves a big hug. a great mentor, and just an absolutely fantastic inspiration to me and to many others. Whether you have your virtual hands or you have your hands, and please join me and make welcome to the virtual stage for our opening remarks, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo. Welcome, man. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Amen. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so it's great to be here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I looked through the chat room myself, and of course, the topic is so important. I had to do a bit of research that why would parents do that? What happens to the children? Is it fair to the children? How do other educational systems cope? Because actually, it's something that, let me start with my own story and explain why I think very differently now. I was in a set long ago that was the first set that I did WAEC in June. Before then, WAEC was in December, and then you waited a whole year before you go for A-levels, before going to university. But we were the first set, so I did my essay from 5 then, over a 6-month period, and for 5 months really, May, June, and finished, and I passed. And I will say something which is not, I pass exams. I think I'm very good at passing exams. It seems to be a skill, and I don't. So when students do well, I'm not the kind of person who says, oh, they are extremely intelligent. I have a skill. When I finish reading something, it stays in my brain. So maybe it's a skill, a talent. So I entered UI immediately, and I was just 15. Till today, I wish I hadn't entered. But it was such a fantastic thing to everybody around me that how can a child enter university at that age? I was very young. I went to an all-girls school. I hadn't been in class with boys. I couldn't say boo to a goose, as they say. I was so scared of my own shadow. In fact, I used to walk in the middle of like 10 girls, and I would be in the middle, so there'd be like 5 girls on either side. So the guy who had the guts to talk to me really had to be a gutsy kind of person indeed. I was so shy, and most importantly, I didn't do well. I didn't do as well as I normally do, because I was initially I was a university scholar. In my first year, I probably came first in my class, and everybody was like, this small girl, But over time, I grew less. I felt peer pressure. I grew less. I was too certain that I would do well, and I didn't do as well as I would normally do. And I still regard my 4 years as kind of like a blot on the door. But after that, of course, I've been doing well the way I've always done well academically. But that was why, as a parent, I looked at my children and said, no, they are going to be emotionally mature before they enter school. You can be intellectually competent, but doesn't follow that you're emotionally mature. But if, perchance, you are lucky enough to have a child who is both emotionally mature and intellectually competent, well, why not? But it's rare, and it rarely happens because you wish it so. It's something that you do intentionally. That child must be equipped with all the skills, the emotional ability to get along with many people, to be able to be strong. Because don't forget, there was a class I had that I used to run there to be first enter class, because if I entered late, the boys would erupt. They would be shouting, making fun of me that I was a baby, and one day I actually started crying. So I just wasn't ready for that kind of environment. And so as a parent, I was very intentional about the fact that I don't care what everybody around me said. No, if the child failed, let the child do it in primary, do common entrance in primary 5. If they all did and they all passed, but I always insisted, no, get to 6, be mature. And I actually enjoyed the maturity of my children when they entered secondary school. I think, like I said, it all depends on you. And so when we hold these conversations, I want us all to be open-minded and not say, no, I can't waste money on year 12 or on year 6, or why should I do this? My child is already tall, and even some people guys, she's already busty. And so what? Physical growth has nothing to do with emotional and intellectual maturity. So you've got to look at a child and the uniqueness of the child. So I actually studied this and said, look, how do other systems cope with it when parents insist on their underage children going on to the next level of education, whereas they're not of age, of the country's agreed age? I looked into many systems, and what I saw was that there is always a minimum age in almost every country. They say, oh, you can only enter university at 16, you enter primary school at 6 or 5 or whatever, but there are exceptions. And I think the problem with us in Nigeria is that we haven't set out the exceptions. So I think we need to set out exceptions. If a child is going to be promoted from primary 4 to primary 6, then there must be certain tests. First, the parents must consent. They must have their consent. And secondly, we really need to test the child's ability. You have 9-year-olds who go to university, but they are outliers. They are very unusual. So again, I urge us all during the course of this very, very important conversation to remember to keep our eyes on the child and not on ourselves. Not to boast that my child entered school at 12, but to say I did the best for my child. Thank you very much. So have great deliberations.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Adefisayo. Thank you very much. And there's something you said here that was, of course, really jumped out. Being intentionally competent, but are you emotionally mature? And since I have you on the virtual stage already, we're getting ready to go into our session where we're going to be asking questions. And we would actually like to start with you. And just continue the flow from here. Thank you for opening the floor with us, because we're talking about this, and this is what we're discussing with you. The school age appropriate policy and how it affects the future of a child. And you have shared your personal experience. And I think it's very important for people to be able to have that chance to reflect, so that more parents can hear this. So I want to start with the first question. I want to just dig a bit deeper into something you said. What are the benefits of aligning a child's admission age with their emotional and intellectual maturity? So if there's anyone who's going to be watching this later, or people who, are still debating or contemplating, what would we tell them? For a parent who might be listening to this and they want to have their 14-year-old go into college, for example.
There's something about the stars aligning and being perfectly aligned.
Yes.
Physically, the child is physically easy. And don't forget, children grow faster now because of diet and so on. So, and emotional, it's so important that they are emotionally capable, even more than intellectually capable. Because being emotionally capable means they are going to face all sorts of situations in college. What I used to tell my parents when I was still running school is that you want your 14-year-old in the same environment with experienced, 19, 20-year-olds who will laugh at the child and make the child do things that he or she shouldn't do because he or she wants to belong.
Yes, to fit in.
Is it mature enough to say no? Can he say no yet? So, if you have a child who is strong, mature, is able to say no, well, why not? But again, I worry because intellectual competence, I did have a child who was very brilliant, all A's, blah, blah, blah. She didn't do school stats and went for A-levels. She didn't do as well as she did not. Mainly because she was in a class of very clever students, and she had been used to being top in class, and so she wasn't strong enough. She was so unhappy that people are so clever, unlike before where she was so sure she would be top in class. And she didn't do as well as she should have. So again, intellectually competent doesn't mean that the child is emotionally capable. It's important that the stars align.
Yes, I like that. The stars align. I'm going to be visualizing that now whenever I think about this. Let the stars align. And now you're saying this, especially for us in Nigeria. I also did a lot of research and look at different countries to see what their age. We still have that. We still have that here in the States. We have people who are still let my child just go earlier, but then you find at some stage you get stuck. But I want to look at it from a Nigerian perspective. How do cultural expectations in Nigeria impact parents' decisions on when to enroll their children in school? Because you have mentioned things like, I mean, I hear things like parents say, let them go, they're clever, they love the boast. She's very intelligent, or she went to school at 15. But what are the things, what are some of the things that you've seen, how do our cultural expectations in Nigeria make us make this so rampant, in our culture? How do they impact parents' decisions?
I think we always say peer pressure when we talk about teenagers, but yes. I see that peer pressure is also something that we need to talk about when we talk about parents. Everybody should look at, every child is unique. I like to use 3 adjectives. I hope I'm right. So that's a grammatical term. Unique, peculiar, and bespoke. There's no second one. Even identical twins are different from each other. You have to understand your child. Can I trust this child? In fact, in an environment, not just trust, is it fair for me to send this 14-year-old into an adult environment? Has she shown evidence of maturity, of being able to make the right choices, of being able to weigh decisions, of making the right friends, of moving the right company, of not allowing the noise of university to get to her? Have I trained this child sufficiently? Have I seen signs of this? If you haven't, it's best for you not to do. So for me, it always must be the child. But we worry too much about what other people do. Maybe most people do. I don't really care. I don't really care. What I care about is what is best for my child. If your child went to school from primary 5, good for you. But this child of mine is not going to school at that age, and that is just that. Well, I think we should be able to manage peer pressure, cultural, a lot of noise, cultural noise around us.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, thank you. And I think some people are really doing a great job of summarizing some of your points in the chat area. Thank you, Mrs. Shola Bankole, for also doing that, and some other people, which is fantastic. And I want to just say this, some of these things you said. So I've taken that. Aligning the stars, and then being emotionally capable is so important. Can your child really say no? We've seen many pitfalls. We've seen the long-term effects of what it means to push your child into an environment they're not ready for. And I'm really glad that you've set the pace for today's conversation. I want to say a big thank you to you, and I'm going to get ready to invite our next panelist. Thank you so much, man. It's great to see you once again.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm always happy to see you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
Great
you.
Educationist. Great.
Bless you, Ma. Thank you so much. And I'm sure, hopefully you're still with us on the call for some time. Before you run off. Before you run off also. Thank you very much, Ma.
As a people with one heart, for one cause, we're determined